gotta be careful, otherwise I'll fall backwards right into the water. Although, as inconvenient as that wouldn't be the worst thing that happened this weekend. I don't know if any of you guys saw either of my live streams, whether it was the live stream I did yesterday afternoon or my live vlog last night. But I received some pretty bad news. Really bad news. The kind of bad news that really does change the course of your life in a lot of ways. The kind of bad news where whatever plans that you think you have, they're either immediately derailed or, let's just say, life handed you a lot of lemons, so you better know how to make lemonade. I don't really know how to go out and say it, so I'm just going to say it. Yesterday I received news that my grandmother on my mother's side passed away. Now, if you've been watching me for long enough, you know that, pretty much when I started making my videos, I still had all four of my grandparents. At that point, knock on wood. As of now, two of them have passed away. There was my grandmother on my mother's side, my grandfather on my mother's side, who passed away in January of 2020. So anyone who thought that 2020 was a bad year for you, trust me, I already beat you guys to it. And now, as of yesterday, my grandmother on my mother's side. So needless to say, my mom nor any of her siblings are handling the news very well. Me personally, on the other hand, and I actually talked this with my brother. Well, actually, before I continue, I should probably tell you that after I did my live vlog, after I did the live stream yesterday afternoon from the Penn Yan Public Library, I called my mom. I told her I loved her. I called my brother. I told him I loved him. And when I got back up to the cottage, I looked for my father, gave him a big old hug, told him I loved him. At that time, it was the only thing I felt that was appropriate I needed to. Actually, not only that, but my family on my mom's side is actually part of a really big group chat, via text messaging or whatever. So I texted everyone saying, I love you all. Honestly, telling my family members that I love them all, seemed like the best thing to do at the time. So, not that I feel like what I did was bad, but at that point, everyone in my family just heard this really bad news. So, they need someone to know that, they're not feeling alone, But when I talked to my brother yesterday, we were both in agreement as to how we feel. And that is, we both have mixed emotions. Now, before I continue, I'd like to point out that the mixed emotions that I'm feeling are not the same mixed emotions as my brother's feeling. Oh wait, some of them are, but mine, it goes a bit deeper. See, the one thing you need to know about my grandmother on my mother's side is she and my grandfather got divorced many years before I was born. Like, my mom's parents got divorced when she was like 10, 12 years old. Like, this is like way back in at the very earliest would be like very late 1969. The latest would obviously be during the 70s. And it's not like both of my grandparents were perfect people. In fact, full disclosure, the reason why they got divorced is because they were both cheating on each other. Well, I know my grandfather was cheating on my grandmother, and I think that my grandmother was also doing the same, but the point is, they weren't perfect, obviously. Although I do know that because of them, should I ever be with anyone, I'm never cheating on them. Nope. So death do us part. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick to that. Because that's what I plan on doing. Anyway. So, many years later, by the time I was born, both of my grandparents had already remarried. There was my grandfather, Richard Rahill, that we called Bobo, who married, well, actually, it's funny, she's now considered what can only be described as my ex-step-grandmother. Again, listen, I never name names, so it's not to embarrass or offend anyone, but if they're dead, there really is no point of, holding on to that rule, because, can't really be embarrassed or offended if, you're dead. So, my grandfather would ultimately marry who would become my ex-step-grandmother later. Meanwhile, my grandmother, who we called Nana, who, at the time, she, was, married, her married name was Diane Glismann, had married, another person, who actually received a doctorate from Harvard, I believe. It was actually, much older than she is. To be honest, I kind of have my, opinions about people, specifically men who are, 15 to 20 years older than the woman that she's married, and they're getting married. I mean, keep in mind, I've seen it work before. In fact, I actually know 2 people that are like that right now. So, it definitely works, but for the most part, I see that really it doesn't work, all because the guy in question, obviously they're older, because it's the guy, of course that's how it works, can only be described as a loudmouth, obnoxious asshole. Plus, not to mention, guys, that's my generation, okay? Stay with your own. Honestly, I'd rather be single for the rest of my life than date anyone much younger than I am. If anything, I'd rather date someone older than I am. Not that much older than I am. Maybe a year or so, you know what I mean? But, yeah, that's just me. So, when I was first born, my grandmother on my mother's side and her husband first lived out in Colorado, where my aunt/godmother lives. Not specifically there, but in that general area, in Colorado. Of all 4 of my grandparents, this was the one I had the least amount of contact with, just because she lived so far away. Eventually, she would move out even further, and for the rest of her life, she lived in Las Vegas, where, my family, has their own little house there. Because, we purchased it during the housing crisis back in 2008. We actually got a really good deal on it. But we have it to this very day. And we'd visit my grandmother. And, that's just how it works. Now, before I go on with saying why I have mixed emotions, I am going to say why I have mixed emotions. I'd rather break down why that is. Because, for all intents and purposes, I really do have very wonderful memories of my grandmother, or Nana, as we call her. Of the many fond memories I have of her, they include anytime she visited, just the fact I even got to see her out, that's always a real treat. When my cousin, who we just came back, who literally just a week ago today, had graduated from college. when that cousin of mine was getting baptized, my mom, Nana, and myself, it really was supposed to be the three of us, and my brother, my father, and Nana's husband. Actually, his name was John Glismann, right? He's dead, but it doesn't really matter. Like, we were all supposed to go to Boston to see, really Reading, Massachusetts, because that's where they live, but it's near Boston. We were supposed to all go to see my cousin get baptized, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't go when it was time to get up and go. So, 6 hours with her, and six hours to Reading, Massachusetts, and 6 hours back. Not necessarily the most fun thing, but I got to spend it with her. You know, listen to music, talk, and doing all that stuff in the car as you normally do. Easily the biggest thing she did, not just for me, but all of the cousins in my family, was, and this is after she moved to Vegas, whenever we turned 16, she would fly us out to Vegas to have a good time. Well, I say have a good time, really it was just to visit her and, you know, do any of the Vegas attractions that families do. You know, like the roller coasters and circus and stuff like that. Don't worry, I didn't see any strip club shows or anything scantily clad, if that's what you're wondering. In fact, my grandparents at that time were kind of prudish. In fact, I'll never forget, it was on my birthday, and they only had one working TV. And I was actually watching Naruto. Yes, I'm a Naruto fan. And they thought it was too violent, so they told me to turn it off. On my birthday. And keep in mind, I'm 16 years old. I'm well above the minimum age to be able to watch something that's TV PG, I believe is what it was at the time. This is like first when Toonami was first doing the like Saturday night stuff. I think they still were doing stuff during the week. It's just you know, they were also doing Saturday night as well. So, actually, because my birthday was on December 28th, I actually got to spend the New Year's Day in Las Vegas. Although, admittedly, I had to fly home like shortly after because, you know, I had wrestling to do. I had you know, school to go back to, obviously. But for all intents and purposes, I got to fly to Las Vegas to see my grandparents. And there were definitely some ups and downs. In fact, full disclosure, no kidding, they would lose me whenever we went out. I'm not kidding. I'd literally walk in front of them, even just a little ways. I would turn around and they were gone. All I did was walk in a straight line and they were right behind me. You know? How do you lose that? I mean, yeah, I could attribute to the fact that they were both old. John much older, probably in his like mid-80s at the time. Holy cow. Actually, it may be even in like 90s, in fact. I don't know. No, it was 80s. Anyway, so before I continue, I want to tell you that I have good memories of Nana. Absolutely. And I also want to point out that the reason I have mixed emotions isn't simply due to the fact that she lives so far away and I hardly ever saw her. In fact, the last time I legitimately saw her was my brother's wedding, which, I'll be honest, I made no secret doing these videos before either, but I was completely miserable at my brother's wedding. Keep in mind, this is back during that time whenever I'd go to a wedding, I'd always be there like, that's not me up there, and it's never going to be me up there. Seriously, this like the beginning of me feeling self-love really starts back in just September of last year. When I went to my friend's wedding, and I'm like, you know what? May not be me up there, but damn it, someday it is going to be. So, there you go. Although, the reason why I was feeling the way I felt at my brother's wedding really does stem from way back. Specifically, many years ago. See, my mom had already had my brother, obviously, because he's older, but she could still be considered a new mom at the time of what I'm about to tell you. See, it was just one day, my mom was giving me a bath in the kitchen sink. And the way my mom described this particular story to me was, at the time, I just didn't smile. Which, I'm going to ask about that in a second. And just out of the blue, out of nowhere, Nana just walks right up to my mom, notices that I don't smile very much, and she just straight up says, "There's something wrong with your son." And keep in mind, yeah, my mom was still a fairly new mom at the time. But let me be honest, I'm still mad at my mom to this very day that she did nothing to stick up for herself or for me. Again, I'm a baby. What am I going to do? I know it's family, and I know that technically, since she's still kind of a new mom, she'll take advice from anyone, whether it's good or bad. But for just someone to walk up to her the way that she did, the way that Nana did, and just say that, really? You don't feel the need to even stick up for your own kid? You're probably thinking, well, Nick, that doesn't really sound like that big of a deal. Well, in the very beginning, no, it's not. Until you realize what I'm about to tell you. Because shortly after that happened, that's when my mom took me to Rochester, where I would then be misdiagnosed as someone on the autism spectrum. I would later be put in special ed in middle school. I would then garner this sense of, oh crap, this autism nonsense is going to follow me for the rest of my life. And that's why I ultimately wanted to kill myself. It was only through the grace of God that my brothers at Trinity Pauling would later save my life, albeit under the circumstances regarding the suicide and passing of one Andrew Einstein, as I couldn't do that to my brothers. It took 30 years for me to properly get diagnosed as someone who has both depression and what's called pragmatic communication disorder, neither of which fall remotely on the spectrum. Meaning, nearly 30 years of depression, rejection, thoughts of suicide, heartbreak, the feeling of inadequacy, the feeling of my brother being the favorite child. Hey, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're the favorite child, you don't get put in special ed. I'm just saying. That all originated from just one time. My grandmother, Nana, just walks right up to my mom and says there's something wrong with me. And that's one of the main reasons why I have mixed emotions on that. Because, of course, I'm sad at the death of her passing. Who wouldn't be sad at someone's passing? It's the saddest thing possible. But I can't forget 30 years of just sheer bullshit. I can't. Caused by her. And the other reason why I'm angry, and keep in mind, this is probably where I'm going to be losing some of you, if I haven't already. See, I really am more old school than I let on. As much as I love to be PC, as much as I try and keep an open mind, I really do see the world as more black and white than others. I really am the kind of person who, maybe it's because I'm a Capricorn, I suppose, but I personally receive the most satisfaction whenever I see bad people, specifically bad people who wrong me, get what they deserve. And the one thing I always wanted to do, but never did, and now never will, is tell my grandmother off for all of it. And there are two reasons why I never did. Neither one of them has anything to do with whether or not I hurt her feelings. In fact, quite the opposite. I wanted her feelings to get hurt for this. Because what she did was absolutely wrong and rude. And it absolutely changed the course of my life. It led to this very moment. You could even make the argument it led to this very moment, actually. And for all the times and for as long as I've even been going to therapy, as much as I've been trying to, and I've been, like, the whole self-discovery thing, the self-worth, self-love, I assure you, I did that on my own. Not because of some relative of mine saying there was something wrong with me. Not because the special education teachers, who were horrible at the time, having little to no care for me. Well, here's the thing. They probably did, but I didn't really feel such. Like, the rejection, depression, all that. Even no longer contemplating suicide. I did that on my own. Me. No one else. Only you can fix whatever's wrong with you in here. And while I will admit it's not perfect, I like to say I've come pretty far, actually. And I'm just so mad I wasn't able to, tell her, listen, you were wrong for what you did. You never should have done that. You ruined my life, but you know what? I got where I am on my own. And not because of whatever. And the way I feel right now, the sense of pride I have, it's in spite of what you said. Or I was going to tell her something like that. The reason why I never really got to tell her what I just said now, was because of what was wrong with her. See, believe it or not, she wound up having a really bad case of dementia. Not quite Alzheimer's, but ultimately her cause of death was she just wouldn't eat anything. She wasted away to nothing. She starved to death for all intents and purposes. Maybe because she didn't know to eat, or whatever the case may be. So, and keep in mind, by the time I was properly diagnosed with depression and pragmatic communication disorder, Nana was already very far gone. Honestly, one of the reasons why I didn't want to tell her off is because even after I did it, maybe she'd forget like 10 minutes later. Which, I know, it sounds absolutely wrong for me to say. But I can't help but feel the way I feel. I can't help but feel like everything that's happened in my life, the struggle, the depression, the feeling of loneliness, especially after rejection, the contemplations of suicide, feelings of inadequacy, lack of self-worth, lack of self-love, was all because of what she did. That one comment she made started a domino effect. That for nearly 30 years, it shook me down. It brought me to the ground. And I tell you what, I was damn close to giving it all up. But damn it, it didn't break me. I am still here, right now. In spite of all that. And believe me, when I first stopped contemplating suicide, it was a good 13 years of a lot of lows, but definitely more than a few successes as well. I got to live to see my brother get married. I got to run 4 marathons. I got to start doing videos. I got to reconnect with people who I never thought I'd see again. And I did it on my own, without the help of anyone else. At the end of the day, honestly, the best form of revenge, for me, that's not telling her off, would have been to finally get married myself. I've made this no secret in the past, but one of my ultimate goals in life is to throw a really big party. I would invite as many of my brothers from Trinity Polling as possible, and invite as many of the good people I know from Horseheads as possible. And foremost, everybody would get together and become friends. Actually, I should also, when I say my brothers, I should also include some of the faculty from Trinity Polling as well. So I can, because I would include some faculty from Horseheads as well. I figured the only way I was ever really going to have a party like that is if I somehow got married myself. And I'd invite everybody there, including, at the time, my now late grandmother. Because whether she realized it or not, sorry, I have tears on my face, excuse me. Whether she realized it or not, everything she said was wrong. So, that's pretty much where I am at the moment. I'm absolutely sad that she's gone. But I'm absolutely angry that I never got to get any kind of justice served. If I lost some of you from that, believe me, I apologize. Some of those things I just said, they're absolutely uncalled for. Sometimes you just can't help but feel the way you feel. And that's just how I feel. If you are watching this, know, even if you only watch 5 seconds, know that I do see that. I do see that you care enough to at least see, okay, what's Nick doing today? What's Nick going to talk about today? I tell you what, you guys are going to be real shell-shocked when you see this. But that's where I am. And the sad part is, in spite of that, yesterday really was a great day. You know, we went to church in Bath at 4 o'clock. We saw the priest there who knows us very well, who knew my late grandfather very well. He did Mass. In fact, we told him that Nana died, and she said, because sometimes in church they have prayers for, you know, the sick or those who have dearly departed. You know, the priest said we pray for Diane Glismann. Like, that was great. We got that. My family knows that, and they're happy that we got that to happen. And that wasn't even the cool part. Oh, that's not the only cool thing that happened. Last night, we go to Village Tavern because we wanted to see the people that we know. And it turns out, the Village Tavern in Hammondsport's under new management. In fact, as of yesterday, they've only been open for 3 weeks. But the Village Tavern's always been good, so my father and I are like, well, we should give it a chance. And personally, I'm glad we did. I mean, open for 3 weeks, you'd never know for how good it was there. It was amazing. They have a new menu, which looks phenomenal. They gave us some rolls with like this chili pesto, which is incredible. The prime rib I got was, oh God, that prime rib. Actually, no. Before that, I got the soup they serve. I got the she crab bisque with jumbo lump crab meat. And I tell you what, the crab meat was as jumbo as the actual bisque itself was smooth. It was like easily one of the best soups I've ever eaten, for sure. And the prime rib, oh God. The best cream spinach I've had since Tony R's was open. I don't know what Brabant potatoes are, but yes. Absolutely yes. More of those, please. They were really great at absorbing like the sauce from the cream spinach and the prime rib. Which, speaking of the prime rib, the prime rib was served with like a red wine reduction, which worked like a really great barbecue sauce. I don't know if that was either by design or by chance, but I welcomed it wholeheartedly. And the staff was great. You know, Village Tavern's always had a tradition of being one of Cuckoo Lake's very best because of the great food, the great staff, the great service. And even under this new management, I still feel it remains the same. So, I mean, not that I never recommended Village Tavern to begin with, but seriously, if you're in Hammondsport, go to Village Tavern. Among other places, but which I'll get into later. But definitely go to Village Tavern. You will not be disappointed. So, yeah. Pretty obvious. My low is the fact I found out that my grandmother died. My high is I had a wonderful time out with my father going to church and dinner. And my act of kindness was, okay, full disclosure, the night before, my father slept on the couch, and I slept in one of those giant reclinable chairs because our beds weren't made yet. So yesterday we made our beds. That was our act of kindness. I got to sleep in my queen-size bed last night. Yes, I have a queen-size bed. I know, a queen-size bed and no one to share it with. Oh, gosh. Listen, considering what I just told earlier, I need something to break the tension here, okay? But that's where I'm at. So, without fail, I am beyond humbled. And, you know what? That's why I'm proud of all the videos I've ever done. Even the ones I don't think are very good. You know, like, everything I did on my own. And it's in spite of what my grandma said. Sorry, I'm harking back on this. If you couldn't tell, I'm not really the greatest at finishing videos like this. So, I mean, at this point, I think I said everything I wanted to say. Everything I felt I needed to say. So without fail, I am beyond humbled that I was able to do this video, to make this video for all you guys to watch and enjoy for today. I'm hopeful that we all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Sunday. Actually, you know what? I never said happy Sunday, did I? Well, happy Sunday. And remember, if any of you guys want to talk or chat, I'm always going to be here to lend an ear. You know I'm always going to do that. Which, considering I just retold the story of why I contemplated suicide, please go talk to someone if you're feeling that way. Whether it's because you're feeling feelings of inadequacy, if you're feeling inadequate, if you're feeling like there's nothing to live for, please talk to someone. Please. Don't make the mistake that I did and have something incredibly tragic like the passing of one of your Trinity Pauling brothers and the unity of all the rest of your brothers be what snaps you out of it. Please, talk to someone. Talk to me, for God's sakes. You'd be surprised who's going to be willing to listen. So, you better believe I'm always going to have your back. Take care and make good choices. I may be up at Cuca Lake, but 607 all day, baby.